In a few days, my husband left for Chisinau to see how things were evolving, as train with repatriates were forming from that town. I, being at home, started packing things into bundles. My husband returned from Chisinau a week later, happy that 2 trains with repatriates had left for Romania. On January 15th, we were summoned to the militia office to collect our Soviet identification papers. We both went. Being the more courageous one, I said to them, "What's the point of getting Soviet citizenship when we, who are Romanian citizens, are legally living for Romania?" In response, the militiaman gave my husband only his military booklet, which was valid until May the 5th. From time to time, my husband would go to Chisinau to check on our departure status, and there he would always receive the same response: "Just wait a little longer." One day, the secretary of the People's Council, a young Jewish man who had once been my student, came to see me at the school. He said, "Madam Teacher, with great regret, I must secretly warn you that they want to arrest your husband. Send him away from home." I came home, but diplomatically, so my husband wouldn't sense the real situation. I told him that I had heard that those who stayed in Chisinau permanently were the ones leaving for Romania sooner. I convinced him that it would be better for him to stay there all the time, and when the time for departure came, instead of coming back here, he should send me a telegram so I could join him with our luggage and our son. He had a place to stay, as we had relatives there. He left, but I remained at home in a state of depression, not knowing what was going to happen to me. At school, I pretended to be in a good mood, kept calm, and even acted cheerfully, so that my Russian colleagues wouldn't notice anything, especially since the deputy director was the wife of the head of security. During this time, my husband's position as district agronomist was given to my niece's husband, and soon he came to live under my roof. Time passed very slowly. I experienced all sorts of emotions. I was nervous at home, in constant tension and pretense at school. There was no news about the call for repatriation. Many acquaintances who came by train told me that there were militiamen at the station asking if they had seen my husband. In our town there was a Russian security inspector who terrorized people. He arrested innocent persons, former landowners and political figures who had lived their entire lives through honest work. He was so brutal and sadistic that everyone feared him just at the sight of him walking down the street. His name was Jmur. One day the school principal, a very kind Ukrainian, asked me to stay after classes to repair a map. When I went to the office, I found the map of Romania over which I was supposed to paste the map of the Soviet Union. I was left alone in the office. I began to kiss the map of Romania and cry, and half an hour passed this way. I couldn't bring myself to place the map of Russia over the map of Romania. The principal came in, saw me crying, and asked, "What's wrong?" I showed him the map of Romania and said, "This is our beloved homeland. Why don't you let us go there? We have the right to." He didn't say anything and left. A few days after that incident, in the evening, The janitor came and told me that the principal wanted to see me at the school. I was surprised, as I knew I had no business at the school at that time, but I went anyway. The principal was waiting for me at the school gate and greeted me with a smile, saying, "Welcome." He then invited me to his home. Even more puzzled, I asked him, "What am I supposed to do at your house?" He replied, "Don't worry, everything is for your own good." I entered the house and froze. In the room was a jmur. My first thought was that I was being arrested, but the principal, seeing my distress, said, "Look, talk to my best friend," and went outside. Jmur invited me to sit down and said, "I know I am the terror of the district, but I want to speak with you in the most friendly manner. The principal and the entire teaching staff are pleased with you as a teacher and colleague. They asked me to persuade you to give up the idea of going to Romania and to stay with us." Hearing this, I calmed down and even found some courage, but I firmly said, "I cannot do this. You have disregarded my husband. Despite having a degree, he was dismissed without any reason. I am sure the same fate awaits my child here. I completed my education in Romania, and it is very difficult for me to teach using completely unfamiliar methods. Moreover, having been raised, educated and trained by Romania, we feel obligated to serve Romania. Why won't you allow us to live, as many others have? We are simply asking for our rights in a legal manner." He was agitated, nervous, and upset, but he controlled himself and, with a surprisingly gentle voice, said, "We've let go of people we don't need, retirees, the sick, mothers with small children, but we are keeping the people we need." Moving closer to me, he placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "Here is the application. You just need to sign it. You can also sign for your husband, and tomorrow he will be appointed wherever he wants. We will remain friends forever." 5 minutes of silence passed, not because I hesitated or was unsure, but because I was gathering the resolve to give my final, decisive answer. An inner strength lifted me from the chair, and I boldly said to him, "I won't sign anything." His eyes glinted like a vulture's, and he said, "You'll remember this." Then, with a sadistic tone, he shouted, "Get out of here." At that moment the principal entered the room, confident that his plan had succeeded, and said with a smile, "So you've come to an understanding, haven't you?" As Jmur was leaving, he responded to the principal while walking out, "You can't reason with stubborn gypsies, but they will regret this greatly." I don't know how I got out of there and how I made it home. I was relieved to find my child and nephew asleep, and that they hadn't seen me in such a state. I didn't say a word to them about the incident, not even later. From that evening on, I couldn't sleep peacefully, always waiting to be arrested. I feared that even the principal would change his attitude toward me, but he remained as he had been and never mentioned the incident. This happened in March 1941. On April 24th, I went to Chișinău to check on my husband, who had been away for 3 months, but there I found no concrete information about repatriation, only false promises. On the evening of April 25th, I returned home to find my son frightened and the house in disarray. He hugged me and told me that Vitali, my nephew, had been arrested. They took him from work, presumably by Jmur, brought him home and conducted a search in his presence, but found nothing. They did not search my bedroom. I realized that Jmur had begun to exact his revenge. The next day, after classes, I went to the militia, only to learn that that morning they had sent my nephew to the prison in Tighina. May 5th was approaching, the deadline for my husband to renew his military booklet. I was in a dreadful emotional state, and despite my efforts to hide it, I couldn't. The deputy director, a spiteful Russian woman and the wife of the head of security, noticed that I had been very distressed lately. Just as the devil disguised himself as a serpent to tempt Eve, she pretended to be an angel. One afternoon she came to my house, and with a very kind and soothing tone, like a mother, she asked why I looked so changed. I, being young at 35 and accustomed to Romanian sincerity and honesty, opened my heart to her, as she promised to help me. After listening to me, she said with sympathy, "Have your husband come on the evening of May 4th, but not to the main train station, instead to the small one. The next day he should go to the militia to renew his military booklet, and then leave the area immediately. If he doesn't come, I'll tell you a big secret. Bessarabia is under siege, and he will be searched for by the security service. If they find him, they will shoot him on the spot as a deserter. I will arrange everything with my husband to help you." She was the wife of the head of security. Seeing the many pillows, rugs, and other items in my house, she remarked that they had nothing to sleep on. I gave her 2 pillows, a rug, a tablecloth, pastries, and a cake. Laden with these items, she left, and I remained feeling somewhat relieved, believing her lies and deceptions.